everyone, my name's Cheri. Welcome to my stamp studio. So today's project is a little bit of a Mod Podge of a whole bunch of fun things that are going to be available starting May 4th out of this catalog. So this catalog goes live on May 4th. You'll want to make sure that you're on my email list because I will have some additional specials. I have some great online classes coming up. I have a cut and emboss giveaway. So there's all kinds of things. Stampin' Up! Is giving extra rewards starting in May as well. So if you're on my email list, then you'll have all of the details because I don't want to spend all of my time talking about all the fun that's coming up, but there's a lot of it. So just make sure you're on my email list and then you'll get to see all of that. So for today's card, none of this stuff really had, like, it didn't come with anything else. You know, we have suites of products and bundles of products. These were all just individuals, and I'm running out of time to use all of the stuff that I've pre-ordered. So I still have 2 suites that I'm going to try to film after this. But all of this stuff was kind of standalone. I have one other standalone thing too. I got a lot of stamping to do. I'm also trying to get the Pansy class started. So if you're in the Pansy class or you want to be, get in on that because what I have started is super cute. I'm waiting on a couple of things that I will be able to order on May 4th to put on your cards. But that will be fun. So today I'm going to use the spiral die. As you can see, it's a fun little tie-dye. So I've really been into tie-dye, making my own tie-dye backgrounds recently. So you've probably seen some of those videos. This makes it a little bit easier. It's a little bit more obviously patterned than when you do them on your own. And then I'm going to use the Party Puffins. How happy are those little guys? They are so sweet. And so these are both just individual stamps that you'll be able to get in the new catalog. I'm going to use these tag dies. Again, these are just on their own. And they are super, they are going to, if you're in the Try It class, you will be getting one of these on one of your projects. Maybe 2, depending on all the, we're doing 12 and I've only sketched out a couple of them because I got to get the pansies done first. So I'm going to use this, but you can see they layer and then they have this fun little hole reinforcer that goes either the oval or the circle. So I'm going to use those because none of this stuff I've used. I am going to use the Sparkle Shimmery Vellum, and I did use that on yesterday's card. So this was a little scrap that was left. I'm using some new colors. I'm using Fresh Freesia and Polished Pink. So we'll get those new colors in there. So the first thing I want to do, and partly because it's raining in Indiana, is I'm going to cut this tag out. And I'm going to just cut it out of this little piece of vellum. Because you can stamp on the vellum. I have found it takes a few minutes for it to dry. And I think if it was hot or I had the heat on and not the windows open and in the rain, it would probably dry faster. But I just want to do this first and then we'll set it aside and let it dry. So this is a piece that I did before and I was kind of experimenting, and I may go back to this technique because this was kind of cool, but I decided the first time I showed you the stamp, I didn't want it to look like you had to do this technique because this was to kind of lighten it up. It makes it look a little bit more like my tie-dye than if you straight stamp it, but I decided to straight stamp it first. So that ended up being scraps. I'm going to put these little hole reinforcers here because they'll end up being the same colors as what I'm using. Pretty much. I switched colors. My hands are kind of a mess because I messed with a whole bunch of colors trying to get the one I liked the best. And every time I would clean the stamp off, I finally just gave up because my chamois needed to go be rinsed off. So I gave up and just started using a towel to wipe them off. Oh, look, I went speed bump. I'm so busy talking, I didn't follow my own rules. You could hear that clunk, and that's not good for your machine, not good for your dies. I tell you that all the time, and then I did it. So you can see it's made these little hole reinforcers, so I'll just pick one. It gives you 4. We just need 1. But if you're going to layer your tags, then you would end up with a whole bunch of them, and you wouldn't have to run each tiny little individual thing through. So let's stamp. I'm going to take this. Look at the fun stitching that's on it. It's really fun. Look at my dirty hands. There's literally ink everywhere. And it's not that my hands are dirty. It is that I have, because I've washed it off, I've just stained them. I've got stamper stain. So this Happy Birthday comes in the Party Puffins. I'm going to just stamp it down here. So you see it stamps nicely, but it lays on top. You could use StazOn, and I got my StazOn out, and then I thought, meh, because I don't need to use StazOn for the other stuff. It's a little bit of overkill, and it does dry. So then I have the Puffin with their party hat on, since it's the party Puffins. There's 3, so you could make a whole little card that was just the Puffins if you wanted to. So we'll stamp this one. I just love a fresh black image like that. It's just so pretty. And then 3 candles. I only need 1, so I really could use one of the candles I just stamped. But I'll show you again. Aren't those just the sweetest? That's all the stamping for this that we have to do with the black. And then I'm going to color the little guy in. So I'm going to take light smoky slate and my brush tip and just ever so slightly brush a little bit of color into his white spots. And that'll give us a little bit of highlight. And then I'm going to take my color lifter and the bullet tip and just kind of blend that in there. So it gives him a little bit of shading so he'll stand out on the card. There's no dies for this, so we are going to have to fussy cut it. But sometimes I know y'all like the sets with no dies because then you don't have to decide is it worth it, because they're so much cheaper than the ones that come with dies because it's not a bundle. So here's my dark fresh freesia. I'm gonna do, this is a pretty color. It's very springy. I'll do the dots of his hat. I have the wrong colors laying here. I did a video where I showed you my new little favorite tool to clean my table up with, and I cleaned my table just to show you that little tool, and I moved everything, and then when I push this back over, it's all sitting underneath my tiny little vacuum. So make sure it's actually taken apart because I'm going to brush the stuff out of it. But it's a tiny little vacuum for your table. It could be your favorite thing you get all year, non-stamping, but kind of stamping. Okay, now that I see that the colors were right, this is dark seafoam. Like I told you, I experimented with several different combinations with this spiral die, and I have some fun ideas for future. But for this is the colors that I ended up with. And then here's the light and dark polished pink. This is super fun. It's kind of fluorescent, the light one, fluorescent 80s pink. Neon. If my stamp pad if the stamp stamps like this, the, blends, you get them in 2 shades, the light and the dark. If the stamp pad stamps this color and it's much closer to the darks, the blending cut part, then I would have done my spiral out of that because that's just calling for a spiral. And then here's my dark. And you could do this in whatever colors you wanted. And it's you can make it a guide card. There's not hardly anything in it. You might not, it's a birthday, so you could have the sparkle vellum. I'm gonna cut this out and then I'll be right back. Okay, so these are cut out. So I went back and forth whether or not to use the Stamparatus because the first couple of times I did it, I did not use the Stamparatus. And I know that the Stamparatus scares you, some of you. And I don't want you to think that you have to have it to make this, because the first couple of times I did it with the grid paper and I was able to line it up just fine. But here's the thing, if you don't have a giant block, you're gonna need to get a giant block to use with this stamp. So if you're gonna choose between buying the giant block or choosing a Stamparatus, get the Stamparatus. There's 5,000 million more things you can do with it than just a stamp block. So what we're gonna do is, you need the grid paper, or you can write on here. If you saw the one where I used blends to color, then, you can color on here with a blend and just use something to take it off. So I'm not gonna actually hold my paper on this one. I am going to hold this. Now, I left a little bit of the ink still on here so I could show you how I marked my first one. So we can see this is gonna be the corner, and it's gonna line up right there in that corner. So sometimes you just want to test it. It doesn't particularly matter if it's straight. I'm going to use my seal because I'll be able to move it easily. And then again, we can see it goes right kind of here. So I'm going to start right here and just use these grid lines as my marker. So if I was you, I would start with the lightest color first, but because I wanted you to be able to see a little bit of that, I'm gonna go polished pink and then I'll just wipe it off. So this is the polished pink. The nice thing about this is you also don't have to stamp perfectly. It's already got like some bubblies in it. So put it on here and just stamp that. Just press down, but again, it doesn't have to be perfect. And if you want it to be perfect and you miss a spot, you've got your Stamparatus, so you can just do it again. How fun is that? That's almost cute enough that you could just leave it as is. So you wouldn't have to do more colors if you don't want to, but we have lots of colors. So let's use lots of colors. So when I did this before, I did use my chamois, but I've done so much ink on it and so many different colors that my chamois now needs to be washed off. So I'm using a wipe, which gets your fingers dirty. They're my least favorite way to clean anything. Now I'm gonna go with the soft seafoam. Get that inked up. And then to stamp this is why you want this grid paper. We're gonna work with like a half of this grid. Because if you do a hole, then all you're gonna do is the last one's gonna be almost lined up again the same. So I'm gonna do this and then I'm gonna slide it, I'll go down just a fraction. See, now I'm like a third here and a third there. And it doesn't have to be perfect again. It's just kind of, it's gonna offset it for us a little bit. So all the colors aren't right on top of each other. Now, if you were doing like 3 shades of yellow and then an orange on top, or something where you wanted your colors to line up, then you could use your Stamparatus. I've got ink everywhere. And that would be, you could get them all lined up on top of each other if you were building color. So now you can see it's just a tad off. Let's clean this off. And the colors that you can do are just, I mean, the possibilities are endless. And I have 3, but you could obviously do more than 3. Now I'm gonna do fresh freesia. Ink this up. I love when you have a new pad, it's so nice and juicy. And when you buy your new ink colors, just go ahead and get the refill. Then you won't be 2 years from now saying, oh, I didn't get the fresh freesia refill, and finding out that they're sold out, because that happens. Our ink color refills always sell out. So now I'm going to go about halfway and down a little bit more. So see, I've just used this little block right here to be my measurement, which is exactly what I did, not on the Stamparatus, except then the big blocks, I have smaller hands, and so it's kind of hard to hold them. And it was kind of fiddly because I was standing up, and then that was the other reason I opted for this, because I didn't want to stand up with my head right over the top of your video. But you do have to kind of look straight over then. But they worked just fine. They looked just the same. It was just a little bit more tricky to hold that block. So now we have this. I'm actually going to do another coat of this color because I did the pink first. If I'd done the pink last, I wouldn't have to. So just put a little bit more on there. Again, that's the beauty of the Stamparatus. Now I don't need to move it. I can put it right here again. And I know people tell me all the times there's things that you can use to press on these. This one I don't care. Like when you're doing the butterflies, you might want to make sure it's perfect coverage. This, it doesn't matter if it gets everywhere. There we go. How much fun is that? That is so super fun. And you could go back and add one more color if you wanted to. But you can see when you just move it this little bit, like the colors just kind of offset and go into those holes up and down. So it works perfect like that. I'll clean that in a minute. Then we did, remember this is a 1/4 sheet of cardstock. So we want it to be cut a little bit smaller. So put it in here, and this side I can lose. So I'm gonna do 4 on this. And then this way, I'm going to do 5 1/4. And you can just pick whichever side didn't stamp all the way down. So we have this super fun background. It looks a little bit psychedelic, I know. But once we put the stuff on top of it, this pattern is okay. And it's strong enough to then be the base for our card. So here's the fresh freesia cardstock, beautiful. Go ahead and stick this on here. Now if you have a side that you think is prettier. Like I kind of like this up here better than this down here. So I know my images are going to be mounted down here. So I'm going to have that be the part that shows up top. Get those on there. And then we'll go back to this. I'm still going to be careful. Here, let's see if it's dry. It's one of my tests from before. So like, this is how you can always test to see if your stuff's dry, because it's really muggy here today. You can probably hear my fan going. So see, it took off that last little bit, and now it should be good to touch. Let's take one of our little reinforcers. Just lay it on the back of your Stampin' Seal. And it gets enough adhesive on it. And you can lay it right over the top of this. And then I have our new black twine, and it comes in the Essentials pack. So you just need a little bit. I love black highlights on cards. In fact, I almost put the matte black dots on this, but I decided there was already kind of enough going on with that background that it didn't need anything else. So I've put it in a U shape. I'm gonna push this together. Now you can hear my fan and the rain, because now it's raining. I have my windows open. I hate turning the air on. So we will be the last people on our street. Actually, there's a couple of other families that have lived in other countries around us. So we kind of vie for who does it last. So put this on here. And then just pull that. And it's literally a tag, an old-fashioned kind of tag. We're going to take this, and in case this is still wet, I'm just going to put my adhesive right here. Isn't that fun? And the nice thing is even though it's vellum, there's so much going on behind this that you can't see my adhesive. Then let's get a dimensional for our little puffin. These are the baby ones because that's what's laying here. The big ones would actually work better. And just add him on. I don't want him right over the center of this fun little, so let's move this over. I didn't want it to cover up the fun little swirly in the middle. And then because he's blowing out his candle, we'll add the candle there. See it? You could put black dots on it, because maybe, but I am going to add just a little bit of shimmer just to make the candle kind of match the tag. The candle and the hat is the Wink of Stella. And that kind of pulls it into the tag, so it all kind of matches. Actually, I'm going to put it on his feet too. My other one I didn't. You can never have too much shimmer. So there you go. Super easy. Very different than a lot of stuff that we do. Here's my other one. So you can see it, this one I moved a little bit more, I think, on my green. I kind of like, or it could just be because I started with green and went the other way, but super cute. So let's put this one on top. Start with your lightest color and then work to your darkest, because my other one's kind of merged into that. So that's what I have for you today. I will be back with the other things that I have yet to stamp with from the upcoming catalog, and then make sure you're on my email list so you do know everything that's going on. Everybody have a great one. Bye.